Welcome to yet another installment of the Innovate Australia Summit. In this episode, we discuss the growing issue of transportation in Perth.
Innovation for me is about the commercialisation of ideas into products or services. And so we're very good at ideas here in Western Australia, but we rank fairly lowly on the collaboration, industry collaboration, industry academic collaboration and commercialisation. Really it's about creating incentives and creating activity so that people have a purpose to solve problems in particular.
Transport, we're in a very interesting position at the moment. Most of the people here were not around for the transition from horse to horseless carriages. I'm making that assumption. I think I'm fairly safe. We're going to be around for the next transition. We're not exactly sure what it's going to be. The next transition is more than just more efficient vehicles and greater speeds and more density on the roads. The next transition is even different to a changing fuel source from gasoline to electric vehicles. The next transition is probably going to be to autonomous vehicles and different forms of mass transit. And that's one of the things that we're going to be exploring here on the panel today. Now, what we do have, just before we begin the proceedings, is a message, a welcome message from our Chief Scientist of Western Australia, Professor Peter Klinken.
I'm Peter Klinken. I'm the Chief Scientist of Western Australia, and I'd like to welcome you to this WA State of Innovation Summit on Transport. This summit has been organised by Innovate Australia with those four wonderful characters, Peter, Adam, Gary and Carol, who do a wonderful job in promoting innovation in Western Australia, and I thank them for those wonderful efforts. I start all of my presentations by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land, the Noongar people, who have been in the southwest of Western Australia for 50,000 years in their language. Kai Mordich Brudi Maman, Kai Mordich Brudi Yoga, Kai Nunakot. Hello, big important men. Hello, big important women. Hello, everybody. Nija Wajak Nungamuja Double Yarragan. This is the land of the Noongar people, particularly the Wajak people who live around this area. They call the Double Yarragan. We call the Swan River. Ninchkadich Nunga Brudi Maman Brudi Yoga Kura Kura Wayayayi. I acknowledge the elders of the Noongar people, past and present. Younger Mudich Baban Jason Barrow, Kurunkul Kadajan. I thanked my own personal coach in Noongar, Jason Barrow, who is at Edith Cowan's Centre for Indigenous Studies called Kurunkul Kadajan, which is a lovely term that says this is a coming together to learn, a bit like you are doing today, a coming together to learn about innovation in transport. And in particular, I'd like to recognise Senator Linda Reynolds, who is one of the key elements in the Parliamentary Alliance for Research and Innovation. Linda, thank you so much for your support of this area for an extended period. It has been greatly appreciated. Your support and leadership has been invaluable. I'd also like to acknowledge Colleen Yates from Regional Development Australia and Professor Peter Newman from Curtin University, as well as the other three presenters who will be with you today. I hope you have a fantastic summit today. I really look forward to hearing the outcomes of this summit, and I wish you luck in your deliberations. Thank you and goodbye.
This latest summit on transport is about promoting the idea of innovation in transport to make the state and eventually the country free from the issues that we face all together, and looking at what are the latest ideas that are developed here in Western Australia and more generally in Australia that we can apply, and we can see this kind of events that we organize here is to give the opportunity to people to discuss about what are the solutions that they are offering. And we would like to start this discussion, initiate it so that it continues over time. We're not going to solve the problem here today. We would like to initiate and continue actually this discussion so that eventually we improve the quality of transport, because this is what we are looking at here today. And there are as many angles as like technologies that are suggested, or some solutions to avoid being on the roads, or we can move from one point to another point without necessarily clogging the freeways. What we are doing now, we are thinking what's going to happen in the next 20, 30, 40 years. Everyone is talking about driverless cars and what what happens in, for example, in the case of we don't need necessarily to travel long distances, what are the potential solutions, and this is what will be discussed here today. There are a couple of interesting ideas that will be exchanged here.
I did want to talk about innovative, sustainable transport for sustainable cities on the basis that innovation shouldn't just be about innovation. You can make an innovative gas chamber. You need to have innovation for a purpose. The top 6 most walkable cities in the US have a 38% higher GDP. So don't let me hear that innovation means that you just get more techie. It's got to be a more walkable city, otherwise you're not going to have the innovation. Around the world you can start to see this decoupling between car use and GDP. Cities are growing in GDP and are flattening out on their car use. It's no longer just an issue of waving a green flag saying, oh, you've got to get out of your car. Cities have to reduce their car use if they want to grow in productivity in economic terms.
Innovation is something that is needed not just in techie things like IT, but also in processes in government, ways in which the private sector can be involved in funding things that they don't have access to normally. All kinds of innovation is needed to get cities to work better and be more productive. The public want light rail, they want heavy rail, they want new centres to be built, they want urban regeneration. And at the moment it's not happening because the money's not there. And that's because we've tended to look at urban rail as a welfare project, and governments are needed to do welfare. But they're not now. They're very popular. They are transforming cities. There's a market for them. And the private sector like them because they unleash urban development around the stations. So if you can put that into practice and use that to help build the railway, then everybody gains. The community gains, they get their railway, they get their centre, they get much better service, and the developer gets his project up and he's able to make money out of the urban development. Government gets their train. So everybody gains, but it's a matter of trialling it out and seeing how that can be done. And that's where the innovation now lies, in how you can actually make that happen.
If you start with a traditional approach and plan a transit system, you might get some land use at the end. You have to get the money from government. If you start this way, you find out where the best urban regeneration possibilities are. Where does the city need redeveloping? Then you link them together with a rail system because the rail can unlock that land development. And you use that to pay for the rail.
To find the best sites for redevelopment. So where is the city needing to have new urban development occurring? Redevelopment, you know, urban regeneration. There's a lot of rundown areas that need fixing. So if you find them and link them together, that's where you need to build the railway because they'll be funded by that urban regeneration.
There's a lot of good work being done all around the world, but we would suggest that Australia is certainly punching above its weight as well, so we'd like to encourage industry in Australia to really do a lot more in this space, and we're working with government to see how that can happen. Australia is not always going to be the first place that some of these international companies want to play, and so we need to make Australia an attractive place and Western Australia an attractive place for the big multinationals to come and bring these new technologies to bear. We're very keen to work to incentivise them, put in place the regulations, the legislation to encourage them to operate here, and particularly in spaces like heavy vehicles, where world leaders, we already do some really smart things, and so there's an opportunity for us to build on that, and that's attractive to some of these companies.
Today, this is not science fiction. It's only taking, on average, 5 years for the technology to go from research to development to full production. Things like ABS, traction control, have taken a long time to regulate. We're seeing these new driver assistance technologies implemented into the fleets much more rapidly. And Australia's lagging behind in some areas, and we are looking to see if we can leapfrog the rest of the world right now.
The technologies are coming very quickly, and what we need to do is be prepared for that. There's a lot of benefits. Road safety is one of those. Potentially a lot of lives can be saved through these new technologies. Also, there's a whole range of benefits in terms of social inclusion. People that might not be able to drive will now be able to be much more mobile than what they are now. Just think of all the time you will have available to you now when you're in the car, when you don't actually have to drive it. You could be doing all sorts of things, even talking to your friends. Certainly very keen to encourage industry and government in Western Australia to get more engaged with this topic. We're a long way from the rest of the world here in Western Australia, but we've got a lot to offer, and I'd like to see us really take advantage of this. So I'll be encouraging people to get more involved. They can get access to the knowledge data bank on the Australian Driverless Vehicle Initiative website, and we'll be encouraging them to connect with others that have a similar interest.
Been doing innovation for a very long time, and from the first tool, that sparked the first fire to the iPhone success. It's a human element that drives the emotion behind how we develop new tools and new things. It's the emotion, it's about the need, and it's about the want. We've got creative thinking. That creative thinking then leads to development of knowledge around fairly random ideas. That knowledge then develops some product. And that product then is adopted, and then where we all adopt that particular idea, thought, or innovative process, and then we all participate in refining that process, where it then goes through that cycle again, or we hit a bifurcation point where it's just not good enough, and so it breaks off into something else and creates something new. So it's almost like a double helix of innovation that we go through in this particular process.
SkyCar is a personal rapid transit, and they're developing those all over the world now, particularly for cities, because cities are just becoming congested. And SkyCar is 5 metres above the street level, so basically we use that right of way that's not being used at the moment, and we go right over the top of the traffic, point to point, 50 k's. It was actually done in Perth in the 80s. I was involved with a boffin out of Seattle, and we developed modular commuting systems, and basically that was first generation personal rapid transit, and now this is second generation where technology's got a lot better, and we can now actually produce and be competitive with other modes of transport. It's cheaper than light rail. Light rail's 5 times more expensive, so it works out 12 millions a kilometre. So it's very reasonable priced. Oh, my dream, my passion is really quality transport for people, of all people. So that's able and unable. So this caters for wheelchairs, mobility scooters, etc. So everybody can travel in a sensible way, not like cattle trucks, and they can all sit down and enjoy the ride.
Uber have got a major program around building Uber fleets where they've got autonomous fleets, and they see that as their way to cut their costs and to make their operation much more efficient. All I can say is I was just in Holland week before last, and they've got almost a 40% mode share to bicycles, and they're working very heavily in this automated space, and they're seeing the synergy between them. And I think it needs careful regulation. People ride bikes for a number of different reasons. It's not just commute. It's for health reasons. It's for recreational purposes. It's for all sorts of different reasons. And I don't think that necessarily is being replaced by Uber at the moment. I think the things like the point-to-point and and the commute type arrangements are the ones that Uber's picking up at the moment. I think it's not just Uber. I mean, the taxi industry are also going to go into this space because they're seeing they're the ones most affected by autonomous, by Uber at the moment and Lyft and the other companies of that type. This is a fact of life. These companies are coming, they've seen a niche for themselves. I think we need to recognise it. I think there's a benefit to these ride-sharing companies if we get it right.
It's about personal freedoms, the car, but it isn't necessarily. There's a lot of people who want personal freedom without a car, and that personal freedom is denied when they're stuck in traffic and when they're unable to get the car when they need it. So being free from that depends on where you live and easy access to, to walk or to cycle. And so cities are rebuilding around that drive. That is a drive. It is a market now. And I personally think we will have about 50% less cars in our future cities. The trend is on, and it's going to keep going. And I think the autonomous vehicle drive and the hype behind it is very much about the motor vehicle industry trying desperately to stop this trend. It's out of control. Why aren't people buying more cars? And now we'll make a super vehicle, which you can't, it's inevitable, you'll buy it. Well, I'm a bit over the hype on this one. And I would say, find a decent place for it to be done. Don't think of it as taking over the whole city. It's not going to. We're actually going to get better cities, more livable, more sustainable cities, and they'll have a part in there, but don't make it look like it's everything.
We have an economic development strategy and infrastructure priorities plan, and innovation has been identified as one of the things that we need to develop for the region to generate new business investment and job growth into the future. Government can only do so much, business can only do so much, but it's going to take a cultural change right across the whole region, the whole state, and even the whole country to begin to be more open to adopting some of these rather disruptive technologies that are coming on board, and they're coming at us quite quickly. We keep hearing quite a number of stories of individuals who are losing their jobs and wanting to look at opportunities and training in order to laterally move into something else, but they're not quite sure what to move into because they don't know what opportunities exist. And I think it's coming more from the private sector than it is from any place else about where future training might end up going. So automation is one of those spaces, and it's not so much in vehicles, but we're looking at more and more automation in how we go about doing things. So we're going to be needing to train a high number of individuals in learning how to manipulate that equipment, and it's been really fantastic working with Innovate Australia in terms of sharing that common view, bringing those individuals together and having that much broader conversation.
Ultimately, government can't do everything, and most of the innovation will happen through the private sector. So it's about working with private sector to understand what their constraints are in a regulatory sense and what would incentivise their behaviour. We're a fairly blank canvas at the moment in terms of government innovation, public sector innovation, and also innovation strategy for the state. So yeah, it's relatively new ground. It's been given great emphasis with the federal government, and I think Western Australia is extremely well placed to have a globally competitive innovation ecosystem. Given our location to the Southeast Asian market, we have great ideas and IP generating innovators and entrepreneurs, and we have a great lifestyle that are really attractive to people globally.
And we get a lot of good comments, actually very positive comments either by email, following events, so people really enjoying coming to these events, like I said earlier. So yeah, I'm very happy that people do like it, and they sort of vote with their feet, So all the events are free, and they're purposely free, thanks to our sponsors, because this way we can get younger people, PhD students, to participate, So it's very fulfilling from that point of view. We're trying to promote the idea of the license plates for the state as well. I believe for 17 years we haven't changed the plates in the state, so we thought like, oh, that might be a good idea. And we actually used to have WA, the innovation state, and we saw Professor Fiona Wood, and she said, oh, why don't we do this state of innovation? So it has sort of double meaning. So we thought, oh, that's great. We want to spread the idea of innovation. We're thinking that by, doing positive things and actually organizing events like that, we can actually spread the idea to other states and across Australia as well.
With the variety of innovative ideas spearheading the future of transportation, Perth certainly looks set to be more livable for years to come.